As Mike already said, thank you very much for this lovely introduction. I'll just briefly, again, my name is Tal Sendler. I've been working at Moss. This is my third year. And just to give you some background on why am I talking about this topic. So beside the fact that I'm a tour guide and I'm a high school teacher for Israel Studies, I was also a shlicha, an emissary on behalf of the Jewish Agency on a college campus. I worked mainly on UC Davis, but not only. So I have that experience, and I experienced firsthand anti-Semitism and anti-Zionism on college campuses. So this is a little bit about why this topic is so close to me. Also, I want to start with a little bit of food for thought. Okay, let's call this. What exactly is anti-Semitism? What is anti-Zionism? How these two are connecting, how these two are separated. Just some of the questions that you might ask yourself during this conversation. Also, by the way, if you have any questions, please write them down so you won't forget them. We'll have time at the end for Q&A. So again, I don't know how many of you ever thought about the difference between these two terms. Is there a difference or not? We're going to talk about this right now. So let's dive in with the basic definition for anti-Semitism. So most Jewish organizations around the world are referring to the definition of an organization called IRA. IRA is the International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance, and they defined anti-Semitism, as you can see here. Anti-Semitism is a, sorry, I lost something. My apologies. Anti-Semitism is a certain perception of Jews which may be expressed as hatred toward Jews. This is the main idea. You can continue on reading the rest of the definition, just these two sentences. I want to also point out that the definition itself, if we go to IRA's website, has another 11 bullet points and examples of different ways that anti-Semitism can be expressed, which include also, for example, the relationship with Israel, and people who deny Israel's right to exist is also considered to be an anti-Semitic act. So, sorry, we'll go into depth on this in a minute. Just to give you a little bit of stat and data, according to the FBI, Jews, who are only 2.4% of American population, are targeted more than 60% on all hate crimes related to religion, which is mind-blowing to think about those numbers. In worldwide, we're less than 0.2% of the population, and still most religious-based hate crimes are towards Jewish people. A significant amount of this amount of hate crimes are targeting Jewish students on college campuses. And again, this is why we're here today. So after we have a little bit of basic understanding of what is anti-Semitism, I want to dive into anti-Zionism. If I used IRA's definition before, I'm going to use ADL definition on anti-Zionism right now. ADL, for those of you who don't know, is Anti-Defamation League. Overall, a lot of what I put in this PowerPoint, in this presentation, I took from the ADL. Just a side note, it's a great resource. If you ever need something, ADL is the place to go. I honestly, hands down, recommend this organization 100%. So even if you want to refer back to something that was written here, said here, anything like that, you can go to the ADL website and most likely will find most of it over there and much more. So according to the ADL, as you can see here on the screen, they just start by defining what Zionism is. And the Zionism movement is a self-determination movement for the Jewish people in the land of Israel, in our homeland, our ancestral homeland. Ergo, anti-Zionism is the rejection of the idea and the legitimacy of the Jewish people return to the land. Every person basically who refused to agree to acknowledge Israel as the right Israel's right to exist, is considered an anti-Zionist. Just think about the connection between this and anti-Semitism, and we'll get there soon. It can be expressed in various things, and I'll give you some examples really, really soon. I want to clarify that, criticism of Israel, government, the policies that Israel implementing, or anything of that sort, it is not anti-Zionism. Anti-Zionism is different than criticizing Israel. A lot of Israelis, I'll say that the hardest criticizers of the Israeli government are the Israeli citizens. We ourselves criticize our government all the time, no matter where we stand on the political map, left, right, no matter what the situation is, we know to criticize our government and our policies better than anyone else. Does it mean that we're anti-Zionist? Not necessarily. You can criticize the government, you can criticize Israel. It's okay to disagree. It does not mean you're anti-Zionist. As long as you believe that the Jewish people have the right for self-determination in their homeland, that's still okay. I want to put one more thing about this. Let me think for a second, sorry. What is the difference? Where do we cross the line between criticizing Israel to becoming an anti-Zionist? That's a very big question. And the answer to it is this. My former boss from the Jewish Agency, a guy named Natan Sharansky, I'll tell you for a second about Natan Sharansky, an amazing, amazing, amazing person. He was born in the Soviet Union. He actually was put in prison. It was a refusal. He was put in prison because he refused to give up on his Zionist ideology, and he refused to give up on his religion. So the Soviets put him in jail. He was released later on and was able to make Aliyah to Israel. He was a parliament member for a few years, and later on he became the head of the Jewish Agency. And as the head of the Jewish Agency, he was also my boss. If you ever have the chance, personal note, if you ever had a chance to interact with him, go on a lecture with him, a Zoom call, whatever it is, highly, highly, highly recommend. He's an amazing, amazing, amazing person with an incredible life story. After saying that, he came up with this idea of what we call the 3 Ds. If there are any former math students on the call, they might laugh a little bit right now because we have a thing called the 4 Ds on our campus. Not that, something completely different. Something we call the 3 Ds is basically the minute your criticism on Israel becomes an anti-Zionism, anti-Semitic remarks, is when you either delegitimize Israel's right to exist, when you demonize Israel in certain ways, we'll talk about it in a second, or when you're holding Israel to a double standard. I feel like I'm going a little bit fast. Do anyone have any questions so far? I feel like I'm talking really, really, really fast. I'm sorry. Any questions? Yes, no? Okay, so I'll move on. I don't know if, by the way, Michael, if they have questions, do we have a way to?
I think you can just unmute yourself. Let me just test right now. Oh, you can't.
They can't
yes,
unmute themselves.
Let me see. I'm new at this too.
You can.
Oh, I can. It looks like I can unmute you. So raise your hand, please, and then I can. I'm testing with Hannah right now, just to see if I'm able to unmute. There we go. Yeah. Okay. So if you do, raise your hand, and I'll go to unmute you. Thank you.
So we have questions?
I don't see. No one's raised their hand. No.
Oh, okay.
You know, use the little reaction thingy where you raise your little yellow hand, please.
Perfect. I don't know where you see it, but sure. Again, it's been a while since I used Zoom. Okay, so what are these 3 Ds? So let's see. By the way, all the pictures that I have here are taken from Instagram, from current events, current posts that we have during these days since the October 7. So let's start with delegitimizing Israel. Okay, what does it mean? Denying Israel's right for self-determination, as I said before. Someone is saying the Jews are not ancestors to this land, ergo they do not have the right to be here, to be in this land. They should go back to this or that country. All these claims of illegitimate ethnic group, okay, us as Jews. The most common thing that we see today is this chant that it's been on the news quite a lot right now, that from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. That's been chanted in a lot of rallies across America, across the world, actually, not just in America. And the biggest news, as you can see on the top corner, that happened, that Congresswoman Rashida Tlaib posted about it, and also trying to say that from the river to the sea, it's a legitimate and peaceful statement, asking the Palestinians freedom, which is not quite true. And I'm going to explain for a second why this chant is from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free, is so problematic. The idea of this chant is saying that from the river of Jordan, the Jordan River on our east border with Jordan, the state of Jordan, all the way to the Mediterranean Sea, they claim that this is Palestine, which is basically the entire land of Israel, the entire land of the state of Israel. When someone coming and chanting this, they saying from that border to that coastline, it should be Palestine, meaning there should be no state of Israel in this territory, meaning they deny our right for self-determination in our land. This chant is anti-Semitic. It's not just, it's anti-Semitic and anti-Zionist, okay? At this point, these two things meet. You can't really be an anti-Zionist without being an anti-Semitic. It's something that I might forgot to mention before. The only time when I've been asked this question, is anti-Zionism anti-Semitism, I usually say not necessarily. And the only time I would accept someone not acknowledging Israel's right to exist if they basically an anarchist and believe that there should be no states and no borders between countries, and then they say Israel shouldn't exist as a country the same way that no other state should exist as a country. If that's their belief, I don't agree with them necessarily, but it's okay, and it's not coming from an anti-Semitic place. Other than that, every other claim for Israel not to exist, every anti-Zionist claim is anti-Semitic. So this is one of the biggest chants that we've been hearing for the past month and a week almost in protests, and it's a very, very problematic statement. Moving on to the next D, it's Ian, I see you have your hand raising. I see that. I'm excited I can understand. How do I unmute yourself?
I think I'm unmuted. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. So this has been a huge rallying cry, and we see it all over the news. And quite frankly, I think that this is the most problematic slogan, and perhaps one that a lot of students and a lot of people have a really hard time coming up with responses for. So in its worst possible take, from the river to the sea means all Jews should be exterminated and the land should be Palestinian. And I'm sure there's some Palestinians that believe that, but I think that many don't. And I think that at least what I hear is their argument is that it's not that Israel doesn't have a right to exist. It should exist, but anybody that was Palestinian and from that region should have the ability to live in that region. And it should be a democratic country where everybody is treated the same with the same rights, et cetera, et cetera. Of course, that means that Israel is no longer a Jewish state, which is problematic for Jews and problematic for Israel. And I think, at least based on what I hear, that's the concept that most people have the most difficulty responding to? Because there's this assumption in the United States that democracy is great and beautiful, no matter the situation, no matter the location, no matter the circumstances, no matter the history. And people here tend to look through a very naive lens when viewing different parts of the world and judging different parts of the world based on certain sensibilities here. So are there talking points that you all have that allow students to respond to that particular point? Because I think that that's one that's particularly problematic.
Thank you for that. It's a really, really important question and comment what you just said. I don't have talking points, but I can tell you briefly what I would react to something like this. First of all, at the end, I do have some practices you can say, not talking points, but what you can do in order to deal with events such as these. One of the points, it sounds maybe problematic for some, and I'll explain when I get there, is to educate ourselves, is to know our history, is to know our heritage. And one of the basic things is that in November 29th, 1947, the UN had a vote on the partition plan, and they decided to separate the land between a Jewish state and an Arab state. Okay, that's the basic idea that we need to understand from that point, that the UN voted for this. What happened the day after is a war started. What we call today as the War of Independence, what the Palestinians will call the Nakba, the disaster, the catastrophe, okay, happened there the next day, right after that, on November 30th. The idea of separating the land is crucial, because if you go even further in the past, if you go before that, if you go to the beginning of the century, the 20th century, of course, you'll see that there were Jews and Arabs living in this land for many, many years. Sometimes it worked fine, but there were also sometimes some events that happened that clashed between those two groups. And referring specifically to 3 different revolts that the Arabs did against the British that results in a lot of death, both for the Jews and for the Muslims. At the end of it, everyone lost. People lost their life. There was a conflict. People had to move from one place to another. Another claim that I didn't put here is the claim about an ethnic cleansing, right? On 1929, there was an ethnic cleansing of Jews from Hebron, one of our 4 holy cities. The Jews were settling in this land in Hebron for not centuries, millennials, right? We had a continuity of Jewish life in Hebron for seriously millennials. We almost never left this city. But in 1929, we were forced to leave the city after a huge pogrom, a huge massacre against the Jews of Hebron. The assumption that they should live in one state, it's not going to work. It's not going to work for any side. And the UN already decided on this, decided to partition the plan. If you're not for the idea of a solely Jewish state, that's your political idea, that's okay. But there should be a Jewish state. The original idea of it, that the Jews will have a safe haven somewhere in the world, preferred in our homeland, right? This is the Zionist idea. In our homeland, that we can live together as a Jewish community. One state, one Jewish state. If you want a Palestinian state, that's a legitimate political thought, a legitimate political claim that you can have. But living 2 nations together in one state, that's not something that is, let's say, realistic. And if you want a Palestinian state in the territory, as what they say, from the river to the sea, it either would be divided between the Jews or the Arabs, according to the common political views, or you destroy Israel, right? This is the options. I hope I answered your question. Can you unmute yourself?
I'm trying.
Oh,
Okay, I am muted.
yeah. Oh no, You muted yourself again.
Sorry, I'm having technical difficulties. If you want to just put in the chat, I can read. The best way is perhaps put anything in the chat, and I can read that. I can see the chat. I'm having trouble unmuting.
Okay, I'm sorry. I want to make sure I answer your question before I move on.
I think you can go ahead.
Okay. So I will continue. So the second D that Nathan Sharansky referred to is, Michael, do you want to say something?
You can go ahead. You can go ahead.
The second D that Nathan Sharansky referred to is demonizing Israel. Portraying Israel or the Zionist movement or Israelis in general as some sort of demonic figure, demonic form, someone who's so evil. This is part of what we call the oldest hatred in the book, in history. This is part of the most basic anti-Semitic ideas of blood libels, for example. For those who don't know, blood libels started at 5th century, basically expanded through the Middle Ages of blaming Jews that would take Christian babies or children or toddlers, kill them before Passover, and use their blood to make matzah. Now, this assumption was so embedded in the church that people actually believed that. And every time before Passover, let's say a child went missing, maybe they really went missing, or maybe someone made that up that a child went missing, and the whole church would go and commit a pogrom and a massacre to the next Jewish village under the claim that they murdered a children child. Now, of course, I feel like I have to say that we do not use Christian baby's blood to make matzah. So like the assuming that the Jews are inherently evil or bad or doing bad things, you can see in the bottom picture of pure evil, right? The Jewish star, Jewish supremacy, the pure evil of stuff. Today, in modern days, since October 7, and even before that, we see a lot of times referring to Israel as the Nazi regime. We've seen many protests where this was said. We see, as the pictures here also shows us, I just spoke with my director from Davis yesterday. She told me that a huge wall in West Davis was painted in the Israeli flag's color with a huge swastika in the middle. Those things happen. All these ideas of referring to Israel as a demonic state, as an evil, as a source of evil, it's anti-Semitic. And the Zionist movement in general. Michael, do you have something to say?
No, well, I do have a question. When you say that is seen as anti-Semitic, do the laws or the authorities in America see those as anti-Semitic, which is, I think, against the law in most jurisdictions?
So I can tell you that this is all based, again, on the IRA definition, right? And according to the IRA definition, sorry, not according to the IRA definition, the US is signed on the IRA definition. In 2016, when they released it, it's a working also definition, still in progress. They may change it in the future. The US signed on it. They accept this as the official definition of anti-Semitism. Yes.
Thank
you. So this is our, sorry, I apologize for the noise. This is our second D. Moving on to the third and last one, which is holding Israel to a double standard. Now, what does that mean? Basically, criticizing Israel on stuff that you're not necessarily going to criticize other nations or other states to the same standard. You're not going to hold someone else to the same standard you hold Israel to. Now, of course, that we as a modern state, as a, let's say, a democratic state, we hold ourselves to a very high standard. Also, we are a Jewish state. We, the Jewish people, you guys may know, we have very high standards. We try to hold ourselves to those high standards as much as possible. But when someone coming from the outside and holding us accountable to standards that they don't hold another state accountable for, that is problematic. When someone coming and denying Israel's right to defend itself after an attack, that is holding us for a double standard. That's if, let's say, any other country in the world, okay, sorry if I'm not trying to offend anyone, but let's say Spain trying to invade France, okay, I'm taking random countries, trying to invade France and shooting rockets at France. France would have all the legitimacy in the world to protect itself and its citizens, and would go and attack Spain as a retaliation on what happened to them. No one would come to France and tell them, oh, no, you cannot go and attack Spain back because we're holding you to a different standard. It doesn't work like this. The base of the idea of it, it's that why should we be held for a different standard? Why the Jews should be held for a different standard? And the idea behind it, again, it's basically the definition of anti-Semitism. Before moving on, anyone have questions of the 3Ds?
I think we're good.
Okay, cool. Just to give some examples since October 7, there's been 270 incidents of anti-Semitism across college campuses worldwide. It's a huge number. And overall, there were a rise of 388% in US alone in anti-Semitism incidents. Not necessarily on campuses. I couldn't find what's the increased percentage on college campuses. I couldn't find that data, but we see on the news, we see on social media that a lot of those incidents take place on college campuses. So I can't tell you exactly, again, what's the accurate percentage rise number. We have a few examples that I took from Instagram, chanting or screening on walls of universities that the terrorists considered to be martyrs, and to praise their act on October 7th. What happened in New York, where Jewish students were held in the library when, I don't have any other way to describe it, as an angry mob trying to enter and do God knows what to those poor students. Cornell, it's a whole different issue, not just the professor that said he was so thrilled and happy to see the massacre on October 7th. Later on, we also saw there was actual death threats from a student in Cornell that went and said that the next Jew he's going to see is going to murder and behead them, and the next Jewish woman is going to see is going to rape her and throw her off the cliff, right? We see those incidents. It's a very, very scary time at this point to be on a college campus, I have to say. If you're a student and experiencing firsthand, I have to say, first of all, I'm sorry. And this is why we're doing this, to show some support, and maybe you'll find here something that will help you with it. And if you're not on college campuses and you know someone on the college campuses, this is something you really need to know what they're going through, and show as much support as you can to those students right now on college campuses. Moving on to the more practical part, what can you do against those things? Now, I'll explain before I'll move to the next slides. The first slide I'm going to show you, it's what you can do right now regarding to what's going on today after the October 7th massacre, as a response to what's going on college campuses. Later on, I'm going to show you practices that you can do, let's say, in a peaceful time when there is not a war going on and the whole world is not going crazy, what you can do on a day-to-day basis. So let's start with this. So at this point, first of all, I want to say, if for some reason you have any urgent issue with with anti-Semitism, you need some sort of a legal advice or legal help, you can address to this website I put here, which is www.legalprotection.org. You can find it also on the ADL Instagram and Hillel Instagram page. It's a website that was created by Hillel International, ADL, and the Brandeis Center to give legal help for students who are experiencing anti-Semitism on their campuses. So if you need anything, this is a very good source to have. Also, it's very important to know and be aware of your rights under the Title VI article. It was changed in 2019 to include anti-Semitism as part of it, as part of the Civil Rights Act that was originally in 1964. Anti-Semitism was added to it. It's really good to know if something going on your college campus and your university is not doing enough or not doing something to face it, to deal with anti-Semitism incidents. You need to know you can report them, and at the end of it, if it will be investigated and we'll see that they're truly not acting against anti-Semitism, they can get defunded by the government. There are certain levels and stuff like this. I really recommend to go and check this thing and read about the Title VI, the correction that was made in 2019. For any outside person outside of college campuses, showing support to the Jewish community by any means on college campuses. As I said just a second ago, if you know someone on college campus, to go and give them a call and ask how they're doing and what's the situation right now, if they have any incidents, if they want to share, if they need any support, physically, mentally, whatever it is, financially, I don't know, any support that you can offer. I know that every Jewish community on college campus would appreciate it tremendously. If you are a college student right now and you're looking for what to do, so first of all, you can go and be active on your community on campus. If it's the pro-Israel groups, every single campus would have a pro-Israel group. It can be a Mishelanu, which is an actual Israeli group of students who are both American and Israeli, or it can be usually it's a mascot for Israel. Again, I come from Davis. We had Aggies for Israel. UCLA had Bears for Israel. Every campus have their own pro-Israel group. Go to these groups, ask them how they're doing, what they can recommend. If they need any assistance, if you're not already part of these groups, it's always good to go to see what's going on. Hillel and Chabad are also great resources and great places to go and to find some sort of comfort as well. Not just for being active, but also something. I know that a lot of Hillels and Chabads are making events right now to help to distress students and offering different ways to comfort students. So if you need something like that, go to look for the Hillel or Chabad on your campus.
Tal, I have a question with that.
Yes.
If a parent or a student feels there has been a direct anti-Semitic act on their campus, the place to report to, would you suggest we're going to get to that? Thank you.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
It's my next bullet point. Reporting any anti-Semitic act you see, who do you address it to? I guess this is what Michael was trying to ask. So it depends. If it's something that, of course, is very, very, very severe, something that is dangerous to surrounding, dangerous to you or to anything around you, anyone around you, of course, immediately you go and you call 911. You don't try to, I don't know, be the hero or anything. Guys, unfortunately, a 65-year-old man just died in LA just by standing next to a protest with an Israeli flag. Don't put yourself at risk. If you feel like you're in danger, so call 911, go to the campus police, ask for help. Beside that, if it's something that is, let's say, minor, okay, nothing that is a physical threat on you, you can go and report it, first of all, to your community, to your Hillel, to your Chabad, to ADL. And one of the most important thing is to report it to the university itself. go to the administration. Almost, I believe every campus, every college will have it, a place to place complaints about those topics. Even if they're not going to do anything about it right now, if they're not going to address the issue, they are keeping record of all the complaints that have been addressed to them. And at the end of it, if you want, you can go back to the administration and ask them to see all the reports from this year to that year, for example. They keep record of everything. So everything, small or big, that you see, it's always very important to tell the campus administration, to the university administration, and then you can show them and say, okay, in the past year, we see an increase of incidents. You can see that this amount of incident happened, small or big, compared to, I don't know, 5 years ago, compared to 2 years ago. They will keep their records for all of this. Reporting to all I'll refer soon in our next slide to the different resources that you can use. Any resource that you have, any group that helps, organization that helps. I'll throw you some names if you're looking for. We have the ICC, and we have APAC, and we have Camera, and we have Stand With Us. All these little groups, no, sorry, not little, very big organizations that have little groups and chapters almost in every campus. You can address them and they will help you at that point. And lastly, at this point, for these days, I would also say one of the biggest ways to stand against anti-Semitism right now is to be proud of your Jewish identity. Is to be proud of who you are and not be ashamed to show it. It's something that I always tell to my students, that the definition of terror is not attacking, is not killing. The definition of terror is to incite fear in someone's heart. If we'll let that fear overcome us and overtake us and we'll hide ourselves and hide our identity, the terror will win. We cannot let that happen. We must be proud of who we are as a Jewish people, a Jewish nation, and to celebrate our identity. We have no reason to be ashamed of it. We have no reason to be afraid. We need to be proud for being Jewish. So again, this is referring to today current events that are going on college campuses since October 7th. I want to move on to what you do on, again, as I said, sorry, at peaceful times. Let's say, with God help, tomorrow the war ends, everything goes back to normal. And what do you need to do? How do you handle your life on campus? This specifically goes more to college students. Those who are not in college, it's good to know how to help the college students maybe to get and do those things. So before an incident even happened, when you get to a campus, if let's say you're a freshman, next year you're going to be a freshman on a college, in a campus somewhere. Before, you don't need to wait for something to happen in order to be active and to try and prevent the next anti-Semitic act. First of all, when you get to a new campus, you need to know what sources you have around you. A really good method is to go to Hillel, to go to Chabad, to talk to your peers, to talk to other Jewish students, ask them what kind of Jewish organizations do we have on campus? What Jewish organization would you like to have on campus? Sometimes they don't have enough people to run chapters of different groups, of different organizations. Maybe you as a new student can help them and lead and open a new group. Go around and get familiar with the resources that you have around you. Some of the names I said before: ICC, Stand With Us, APAC, Camera, Z3, I think it's more coast, is West Coast kind of thing, maybe just NorCal. There are plenty of organizations. I'm blanking on them right now, but if you go to one of those organizations, that will for sure help you to get to know all of them. Second thing you can do is, I won't say just get, you should do. It's kind of more than just recommended. It's get involved with life on campus. If it's Greek life, if it's going and seeing other interests that you have, if you're really into environmental, and go to Save the Earth group, and be active on their club. Go to I don't know, Feed the Scroll Club, if that's your thing. Go to any kind of field that interests you genuinely. You don't need to, I don't know, fake it or anything like that. You have other interests in life that beside being Jewish. It's okay to go and act according to those interests, and to see other communities and to interact with other communities, and to be honest with those groups about who you are, and also to be there for them. At the end of it, you want to create your own community on campus. Again, regardless to your Jewish identity, you want to have your safe space when you are, I don't know, practicing sports. If you're into lacrosse, so go to the lacrosse team and be part of it. And when your friend in lacrosse team comes with you for advice, be there for them, because later on, when you want a friend, you know you can rely on that friend too. If God forbid something happens, you can address to them as well. Building those communities, building those relationships is super, super crucial on campus life. Moving on to, again, things you can do before anything even happens. You don't need to wait for something to happen to act on those things. As I said before, educate yourself about Israel and the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. Not just about the bad things that's going on. In the past, I got comment on this that people may find this problematic. And people told me, like, why me as a Jew has to be educated about so-and-so? And the idea here is not just to be educated about the conflict and the war. To be educated about Israel is much more than that. To be educated about Israel is to be educated about your own history, is to know where you're coming from, is to know what's your background, where your family is from. One of my main goals as a Mosque teacher, as an Israel study teacher at Mosque, is to help my students to find their own story, to find their own history. What is their history? What's their story? What's their deal? By going through our history as a nation, the Israeli nation, they're going through their own story. You need to know how many of us, and including myself, until I got to college, I didn't know most of those things. How many of us celebrate Passover? Well, Passover is not really a good example because we have Haggadah, but how many of us celebrate Hanukkah without knowing the story of Hanukkah? The true story of Hanukkah. We light the candles, we eat sufganiyot, we play the dreidels. What's the story of Hanukkah? How many of us dressed up in Purim? How many of us know what the story of Purim? How many of us fast on Yom Kippur? Do we know what the true original meaning of Yom Kippur is? We need to educate ourselves about our own history, about our own heritage. All those things are connected to Israel today. All those things related to who we are and why we are as we are as a nation. What makes us the Jewish nation? So it's really, really important for us to know where we came from. So to educate ourselves about our history. The next one, very, very important to note. Again, this is, as I referred before, as a peacetime, not during very tension times like we have today. Don't go and try to interact too much with people with different opinions. Again, I don't want you to put yourself in any dangerous situation, God forbidden. But in regular days, it's okay to have a conversation with someone who not necessarily agree with you. If it's something that you don't really feel comfortable with, start small. Start with people inside the Jewish community who are also Zionists like you, but may disagree with you. Maybe you're on one side of the political spectrum and they're on the other side. Start there, start small, be confident on what you're bringing to the table. Again, relating to the previous one about educating yourself and what's your true identity is. And it's okay to disagree with people. It's something that I found when I was in America that a lot of my students not necessarily felt comfortable doing. And once they confronted with that feeling and they were starting to do this, they felt really good about themselves. Start small and grow bigger. Talk to people who not necessarily agree with you. And you have to be very, very organized. Okay, I gave before the example AFI of Aggies for Israel. When you're having a pro-Israel group on campus, if you're part of this, you need to plan ahead. You need to know that at the beginning of the year, we used to have tons of meetings just thinking about all the ideas and all the events we want to do throughout the year. We want to do an opening event. We want to do an Independence Day event. We want to do a Holocaust Remembrance event. We want to do baking challah event. We want to do a spa night. Not everything has to be related to the conflict and the Israel-Palestinian war or bad things. You can also you should also include events that are fun and cultural and are for you to just enjoy and celebrate your Jewish identity. Those things are super, super crucial. Again, going to all these groups on campus, such as Chabad and Hillel, will help you organizing those things. All the different organizations that I've mentioned before will even help you fund those events and those things. But you have to be very, very organized when you do so. I'll try to finish really quick with, so you'll have time for questions as well. What do you do if, let's say, something happened on campus, not on a war scale, but let's say there is a very known anti-Zionist, anti-Semitic speaker coming to speak on campus. So you need to be familiar with who they are. Go and do your research and assess the event, assess the speaker. ADL, as you can see here, it's written in the bottom. ADL is a list of extreme speakers and how to identify them and what you need to know about them before they come into your college. I wouldn't say go and confront them. It's, again, today's very, very tension, but you need to know what's going on. Try to do this in a civil way, in a polite way. I think I'm stealing from the next slide, but you need to assess the event. You need to know what's coming ahead. You need to be organized about to know what to expect on the speak, or I don't know, a BDS resolution that's about to take place. You need to be as familiar as you can with those events. Again, as I said before, if you're coming and talking in those events and asking questions that's problematic speaker, for, let's say, be respectful. Don't try to confront them, and to be on point. It's very, very important. Other things you can do. It's also writing an op-ed for the school newspaper, for example, and also, of course, connecting the university administration, as we said before, about anything. If something is truly, truly problematic, and you think that speaker should not talk to them and address them. I can tell you that during COVID time, SJP at UCSF arranged a Zoom call with a terrorist, Leila Khalid, I think it was, a known terrorist from the PFLP. And they arranged a Zoom call with her under the campus title. And Hillel and the students worked against it, and the administration shut it down. Not only did they shut it down, they were able to also involve YouTube and Facebook to prevent the live streaming of that event. So don't underestimate your power to do those things. This is in general, and this is a time for questions. I will stop my screen sharing.
Here's a question. Is Hillel maintaining a list of universities that have had anti-Semitic acts on campus during this time, and in fact, all time on the university, because this information would be helpful for parents and students where they go. So do they keep a list of good and bad places?
I believe, well, I won't phrase it as good and bad places, first of all.
Or safe?
I believe that Hillel International have some sort of a database. I don't know how far you want to go. I can also say from personal experience, in a place where there is more anti-Semitism, the Jewish community tends to be much, much stronger too, and much bigger. So there are pros and cons for everything. If you, as a student, trying to decide which place best for you to go to, talk to Hillel, talk to them about what campus life looks like for a Jewish student. Again, each one has their own decision-making process on those things. So I believe that Hillel International may have a bigger data base, but I don't know exactly.
Otherwise, it sounds like what you're saying too, if I was considering UCLA, I suppose I could just pick up the phone and call Hillel of the specific campus.
Definitely.
Real simple.
I can tell that we had a prospective students coming in usually during spring quarter. Every single year, we had dozens of prospective students who attended the Hillel. Some of them even came for Shabbat and joined for Shabbat and to see how Jewish life looks on campus. That's something that's completely normal, and I'm sure most Hillel will be more than happy.
Great. You didn't touch on it much, but social media, it's everywhere. Is it possible to combat it? Any suggestions there?
Well, social media is a whole different issue. I didn't
Yeah.
address it because the whole topic today was how to deal with it on college campuses. The social media, I'm trying to think how to phrase things. Sometimes it looks like it's a lost battle. And the biggest problem we have is numbers, because social media works on algorithm, and algorithm works on numbers. And there are 15 million Jews around the world, and there are 2 billion Muslims. And the numbers are not going in our favor, whether we like it or not. And for every comment that we'll have, they'll have hundreds. And adding to that all the bots that people are inventing every single day that changes algorithm, it's a very, very challenging battle. I can tell you that here in Israel, they talk a lot about this, and I can tell what they say. Some people are trying to combat this on social media. One of the biggest things that they say, comment and share and like only things that are related to us. Don't go and comment on anti-Israel stuff. Why? Because you increase their exposure by commenting on them, by sharing something that is, let's say, you see as a complete fabrication of truth, or taking things out of context. You say you want to post it on your story on Instagram and say, look at this and that. That's out of context. You should know this X and Y. You're exposing the more people to that content. The algorithm will know more people are interacting with this video, with this post, and will increase their exposure. Only comment on things that are related to you.
So as difficult as that is, stick to the positive on social media, it sounds like.
I can tell you that me personally, the things that I post, I've been more active than ever on Instagram. I've never been that active. I can tell you that I try to also combine things that are trying to give us hope and beautiful things that are happening in Israel. If it's volunteering projects, and someone made a beautiful graffiti, the houses in France that were marked with the Star of David, someone turned it into a beautiful graffiti, things like that. Informative stuff, things that will give other people context. I know that some students follow me and I follow them, and we share ideas about this. So try to have a variety of things that on your social media. And I will also say that if you're sharing something with hard graphics, either by image or by wording, please give content warning. Unfortunately, myself interacted with some videos that I wish I haven't. If you're sharing anything, you have the entire right to share whatever you want. There are very hard graphic images online. You can share them. Just give people the warning before you do.
Okay, great. Thank you. Anything else? Well, wonderful. I think this is a very real tough time. You've given us some ammunition. And I think if I could just sum up very easily, and correct me if I'm wrong, use the resources at hand in your specific communities. It sounds like some of the big ones are ADL, Hillel, the various magazines, publications. I know in Orange County we have J-Life. I think that's a national chain of papers. They have a lot of local stories. Contact the Jewish studies or whatever it's called at your specific universities. They're good sources of information, and we can support them. They can support us. Anything else to add?
I just remembered about the talking point. If I'm not mistaken, AD have a resource of talking points on their website.
Right on the web. You don't even have to call them, just check the website.
I'm like 85% sure that I saw talking points about different things on their website.
Great, great.
Yeah.
Terrific. Anybody else? I'm monitoring the chats. Let's see. Oh, here's one. Someone's son is a freshman at university. They were going to do a Jewish cabaret. They started talking about it in August. This week they're talking about canceling and being asked why they plan on canceling. In this person's opinion, it's more important now than ever to be seen on campus in a positive way. But there's also the security thing too, I realize. I think the plan was to do it as a fundraiser for Hillel. What do you think? How do they defend it? How should they proceed? Should they cancel their fundraiser?
Who wants to cancel it? They want to.
The kids, yeah.
The question is why they want to cancel it. If they don't feel safe on presenting this on their campus, they shouldn't do it. But they should also know that they can ask the campus police to attend the event and to watch them. I can tell that we had multiple times at Davis that we had the police with us in certain events.
And I assume the police are always happy to do so. They don't want trouble from anybody.
No. It's also part of their
what they do.
Their job is to protect the students, and everybody know it's a very hard time, and everything is like crazy all over the campuses, and they know things can get bad very quickly, and they want to prevent it. So more than it's just being their job, they also want they want to make sure everything is okay. They know it can go rough. That's why they're there.
And it's a time to engage. And when you engage, you'll make a connection with your university that'll run deeper. I think that's an excellent there's opportunities here.
Exactly.
Yeah, great. Terrific.
Again, but I just want to point out, if they don't feel safe to do it, I don't want to sound like they must do it or anything like that. They know their campus more than anyone else. If they truly feel it's unsafe, then they know it better.
Yeah, terrific.
Yeah.
Good advice. Well, thank you, Tal. Much to think of. Hopefully we'll have you back at better times with great, and hope to have you back with more advice for us. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you all for joining Alexander Muss High School in Israel online. Hopefully you'll be able to do so in person in the next year, we hope.
Amen.
Terrific. Yes, terrific. Thank you
very much, everyone.
All right, goodbye.